Thank you.
I'll start with you, Joy. I mean, this is a video that had gone viral. It's still trending on social media. And of course, it's raised a lot of questions on the role of parenting, especially in the digital age that we are in right now. What is your reaction to, because people say this is just one reported case. It's a reflection of us as a society. What do you make of this?
We have to appreciate that our children are growing up in more challenging, in a more dynamic, faster environment than we grew up in. When we were growing up, if you were exposed to pornography, it was somebody who had a very tattered copy of Playboy that was being looked at in the girls' toilet over break time. And that was the bulk of what, it was boys just sharing, dirty little pictures. And, once you've seen it, it's gone. But today you have children who, it's in the programming, it's on the internet, it's not just pictures, it's people, they're doing things, they're conducting stuff. You're sitting there, you can actually search to find something of particular interest. You're not just exposed to what's in front of you. You can sit and worry and wonder and find it. And what that does is that we fail to appreciate that our children are just as, in fact, the same capability that we had. We keep saying that they are cleverer than us. No, they're just more exposed than us, but they're just as immature as we were at their age. If you think about what was important to you when you're 8, when you're 9, it's the same thing with your children, but they're exposed to so much more, they're processing so much more. But we have so much less time for our children than our parents had for us, and they don't have the benefit of being brought up by the village. I had the benefit of being smacked by total strangers in the streets for misbehaving. Right now, try and do that. I mean, it's a lawsuit you're facing. And so these children have got so much more that they're dealing with much less guidance. And what it does at the end of the day is we think that children are intelligent and sophisticated enough to make their own decisions. They are. It's only that the way they arrive at the decisions is now what we're seeing with this child. He's been exposed to something that has made him to make some decisions that we are now ridiculing him for. But what was he working with? What was the alternative? So as parents, we have to be more deliberate. I agree with what the person in the interview just said. We have to walk this journey with our children. You don't have long with your children. It's 18 years. Once they go off to secondary school and they're in boarding school, that's it. They're out of your house, literally, because the next it's campus, next it's the world. So you just have all of 14 years to actually put something in your children that they can carry for the rest of their lives. So we need to be more deliberate about how we parent.
All right. Joseph, I'd like to get your view as well on the same with regards to the fact that you actually, encounter these young children and you talk to them and you mentor them. What are some of these challenges that they face that would perhaps signal such kind of behavior?
All right, thank you. See, the problem, Zainab, today is we're living in a society that is really permissible. Anything goes. Anything goes. And as soon as it's termed that it's popular, it becomes normal. And soon enough, it becomes, everyone embraces it as nature. So instead of pointing out to the root of the issue, we are busy. There's really a problem, especially with the kids, that is emanating especially from home. Home in this sense. These kids, by the time they're being received by, I've dealt with, say, for example, in the corporate space, we go do a team building with a certain school, and the teachers are totally helpless. The kind of language being used there is totally vulgar. Their character is just questionable. But they tell you, you stick to the book. You came here to do some training, nothing to do with your language. But we see that's been permissible straight from home, because we have, in fact, one of the misgivings of this generation is that it has been handed over a culture of wrong definitions from the very inception. Wrong definitions. We were taught the cost of things, not the value. That is why we can very easily compare backgrounds. We were taught, for example, parenting is interpreted as meeting needs, not nurturing. Therefore, we have kids who are simply growing up, not being raised. And that is a fundamental difference right there. Yes.
All right. That's very interesting. And of course, it creates an idea of probably a mental picture of where the problem is really. And Esther, from your own perspective as well, I saw some arguments saying that could be that these young children are facing psychological issues that would prompt them to act in the way that they do. Is it really?
Everything begins in the mind. So yes, there could be some psychological issues. But let me say, we live in a society where there is no regulation. First, self-regulation, regulation in the home, and then we take that regulation out there. There are no rules, there are no boundaries, and even if they're there, no one is really adhering to them. Because let me start with, what is a 12-year-old doing on a social media platform that actually advocates for 13 and above? Who allowed this child to just join and do whatever they want to do? So first, we need to come to a place where we are self-regulating ourselves. Then we can regulate our homes and then be able to be the parents that we're supposed to be. Because as we look at, in terms of the psychological issues, there's also lack of authority. If there was authority, you'd know, as a leader in my home, these are the needs of my children. So psychologically, we are not meeting the needs of our children. What we're actually doing, we're giving them material things to counteract the time, the affection, and the love we're supposed to be giving them. Yet this does not replace the primary need of love, affection, and direction that our children need. So as parents, I think in as much as we're in a fast-paced world, we need to go back to the basics, which is we need to parent our children, be the authority, be the voice of reason, and actually bring them up in a system where there are values, there are boundaries, there are rules and regulations.
But do we solely just blame the parents?
It's a society as a whole, I would say. Like you said, basically, it's just a reflection of what is going on. This was just, it's just that it trended. But basically,
but there are so many other, things that do not actually come to the limelight.
Yes, there's so much that happens behind closed doors, behind the scenes, that don't come to the fore. I can tell you for a fact, right now, our young children as young as 12 are dealing with sexuality issues. It's just that it's not trending. But I can tell you, we've seen an upsurge, especially with counseling issues, in terms of sexuality issues. And you're wondering, what is going on? And when you have a conversation with the parents, sorry to say, parenting has gone to the dogs. Because you sit down, you listen to this parent who looks so helpless, and you're wondering, what do I do? Where do I start? Is it the child? Is it the parent? So something has totally gone off, especially with us as the parents, because children also, they don't do what we say, they do what we do. So they actually just imitate what we are doing. They are sponges who that absorb whatever is within the environment.
All right.
Yes.
And talking about parents, Joy, do you think then we should have probably parenting classes or training on parents on how to become good parents, or shouldn't that just be innate, naturally occurring?
I think that's part of the problem. We think we can learn everything in a little course, get a certificate, and we are certified to be parents. And that's why we are where we are right now, because everything has become so academic. Let me say this: Oprah lied, and now not Oprah, just as in Oprah, as in our society, our thing. We lied to ourselves. We lied to ourselves that we could have it all. We lied to ourselves that if you think it, dream it, pursue it, you will achieve it. And especially for women, this has become a bit of a dichotomy. Our mothers used to make a very clear choice, whether you're going to be a homemaker or a career woman. And you'd find the women who chose to be career women and never bothered to have children. And they excelled in their careers and they reached the top echelons, and that was just them. And the ones who chose to be homemakers would do a little modest job, they'd be a secretary or a nurse or a teacher, a job that allowed them to be a homemaker as well. We want to have it all. I want to be a politician. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be active in church. This is actually me. That's my life. So you'll find I have church meetings. I have board meetings. I have school meetings. I have my meetings with the Law Society. I want to run for office. I want to come here and comment on. I want to have it all. And I want to be a mom. And I'm just one. There's just 24 hours.
It's extremely overwhelming then.
And it gets to a place where something has got to give. You cannot be good in everything at all the time. We have outsourced parenting. Like I keep telling people, my house help is like my wife. I take care of her the way my husband takes care of me, because if she crashes, I burn. And it's gotten to a place where if auntie says tomorrow she's leaving my life, I don't know where I would start. I'd be completely lost. And it's because I have outsourced my mothering, a big chunk of my mothering to her. My youngest called me mommy and called her mama. There's a reason why I'm being vulnerable. Is because I'm not unique. There are very many women walking a mile in my shoe. And at times I sit down with my 14-year-old, I have a 14-year-old girl, and she says something, and I look at her and wonder, when did you grow up? When was this thing? And if you talk to her, she's like, oh yeah, she talked about the other. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, my house girl knows more about my children than I do. And now I'm reassessing my life and I'm thinking, what do I need to cut out? I've started pulling back on some activities to try and be more present at home. We are sold a pipe dream. And I think for individuals, we need to start giving people the permission to be fine. So you have a law degree, but that doesn't mean you have to be the biggest high-flying lawyer in town. It is fine to be an excellent mom. There are people who spent 10 years in their career to raise the family, then went back to the job market after. We need to stop penalizing and punishing ourselves for being good parents. Being a good parent is just as important as being at the top of the career ladder. Because if you find anybody on their deathbed, they don't say, I really, really wish I'd closed that brief. It's always about relationship. I wish I'd invested more. I had spent more time. I had just one more day. That's what people always wish for. So let's reassess our priorities and hopefully salvage something.
All right. And Joseph, probably you'd like to add on that. You know, Joy has talked about something very important, which is sort of, she's talking about what, sacrificing family values for success. I believe that that's exactly what you meant, right? So the consequences of this is probably what we're seeing with our young people at this point, right?
Yes. Actually, probably would put it metaphorically, we are at a point whereby we are responding to the thunder. We are responding to the sound that is finally evident. But we missed the gathering clouds. We missed it when the clouds became dark. We missed the lightning. We're finally now responding to thunder simply because it's audible and we can see it probably over, social media platforms. But when the digital revolution came in, we were at a point whereby the issue is not even phones. The issue is the TV. We've not even sorted it out fully, like how to handle our kids and the TV. We've not even answered the question of should they have the TV sets in their rooms? When how much time are we even able to control the content? We've not even been able to answer all that. Now we're just responding to the thunder because it's finally in our ears. Yet the very silent sound and yelling from the kids was one from the beginning. These kids are asking, it is not enough to exist. We long to belong. So when we could not find parents, or we could not find elders or seniors to walk with us, we looked for something that would attach. We would attach to. So they found their peers, they found the social media, and social media has a mindset of its own that is really just cultured around relating. That's why you will like, you will follow, you will find a friend, something that gives you a mental concept that I'm actually relating to this. They're just yelling and saying, I long somewhere that I would belong. Someone who would understand that. And that's the space of mentorship. Anyone who comes close to them and shows them, you know what, I don't care where you study, what you have in life, I just care to know you as a person. Mentorship is not just pointing to an issue, it's not just pointing to an issue, but pointing to a direction that has been missed. Therefore, walking with them in the right path. Because it's the path they missed from the beginning. Yes.
Asta, I mean, you know, there's something also you mentioned a little bit earlier. It's about the community being part of parenting as well. Like, you'd be smacked in the head if you were found doing something in the streets with someone who you don't even know is a neighbor. But that doesn't happen anymore. And this could be a contributor to, you know, being individualistic, that don't touch my child, this is my life, completely affects the behavior of a child as he or she grows up.
In as much as we're embracing technology, we're embracing things from the West, we still need to remember we're Africans at the end of the day. At the core of it all, there was a lot of good in being an African. There are a lot of values that were imparted in being in a sense of community. So in as much as we are moving to another source of culture, we don't need to lose our culture. And our culture would say, let's live as a community. Let's raise these children up as a community. Let's instill certain values. There are certain things that were done at certain points in time. Allow me to be very honest. There are things like even initiation that has been left to the church. Yet we still have our elders at the back at the village to take our children through this process and instill the community values so that our culture, our heritage is not lost. But what have we done? We have made our life so easy. Like she's saying, we outsource everything. So the easiest person or the easiest thing to outsource to, we do it. But we don't sit back and ask, in as much as I'm outsourcing, what do I want to see at the end of the day with my children? Because you can take them to the best schools, you can take them to the best hospitals for whatever procedures, but when they leave that house, what are they living with? What I usually say is you can give a child $1 million, they go out there because you didn't instill any values, it's lost within a day. But take a child to school with that $1 million, instill values in that child with that $1 million, and they will make 10 million. So you need to ask yourself, what am I investing? Because children are like a tree. They're seeds you're planting at this point. After 18, after 21, it's a harvest you're reaping. So you need to sit down and ask yourself, what do I want to harvest with my children? What do I want to see at the end of it all? What am I growing in them? Which fertilizers am I putting? Because if you're not doing it, someone else is definitely doing it. The weeds are all over. The weeds are there, and they fight for the nutrients and they fight for the attention. So from the word go, like she said, when you have children, you need to deliberately grow with them. You don't breastfeed for 6 months, go back to work and totally outsource. There are things you can outsource, yes. Outsource also with limits, outsource with regulations, because even as we allow nannies into our houses, do we even give them regulations? Do we tell them in this house, this is what we stand for, this is what we value. As a family, this is what we're working towards. So you can outsource. It is very okay, and I understand. We all have goals we're also trying to attain, because at the end of the day, we're individuals. This is a role we're playing. But as you're outsourcing, there are things you definitely cannot give in. Like the giving of values, the instilling of discipline, and discipline is not punishment, and the molding of character. It goes back to the parents, not to the school, not to the church, but first to the parent.
All right. And I saw this comment where someone said parenting is never easy, but today's parents have to grapple with technology in a way that no other generation has ever had to. And this is a generational a consequence of the fact that we've talked about having, individual values in terms of, you might find a family that is quite liberal and a family that is quite conservative. And in the liberal family, they value what we call digital literacy. And you'd have your 3-year-old access the internet, do whatever we want, and, but that is an issue, Joy. I mean, at the end of it all, if you do not teach your child the consequence of the other side of the internet, bad things might happen, right? So how much time would you allow? You have children. When do they use social media? Do they have access to social media? How much time? Are they well monitored when they're on the internet?
Let me just take 2 steps back before we get to the technology. We are raising socially awkward children who are very popular online and on WhatsApp and on everything, but in interactions, they're very awkward.
True.
Over the holidays, there was a VBS at church, and I tried to take my children to the VBS. And there are those of us who are driving our children to the VBS and dropping them off and giving them hugs and releasing them. And there were these kids who are being collected by a bus from the Essex and brought. So you had the kids from the lesser well-to-do areas, and then those of us who are being bougie and driving our kids in. Those kids left their moms in the village, hopped on a bus, drove by themselves, landed, and were enthusiastic to get into the meeting. Mine was clinging on to me in the car park. Mommy, don't leave me. Mommy, don't leave me. There are too many people here. And I realized I was one of those VGG children because I grew up in Shorimoyo. And we were fearless. I mean, anything you needed to do, it was an adventure. Shoop you off to Dufampara Row, whatever it is.
We'll come back in the evening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what's now translating into now social media technology use as well. One would think that if we put these shields and keep our children cocooned from this, then it makes them more aware. I have seen one of my friends who is very deliberate about her children access technology from when they're babies. Before they can talk, they know how to operate a phone. I mean, you put off the TV to pray, you see the child going to try and put on the TV because they know if you swipe, something happens. But what she does is that she's deliberate about walking with the children through what they're seeing, so the children learn to distinguish good from bad. So something will come on, and you'll see baby saying, no Halloween, and she'll chuck that video and put another one. I don't think mine has that awareness yet. What does that mean? It's something that Kago said earlier. Write definitions. That child has been taught, this is good. When it comes to spells and witches, that is bad. We don't watch that. When it comes to this, so even if they're on the net, she knows what is good, what is not good. This is allowable, this is not allowable. If she's not sure, she'll come and say, Mommy, can I watch? My children don't have the same skills. So I asked her, how did you do? She was like, no, I was just deliberate about giving the same boundaries we give in real life. I gave them on the net.
Sure.
And I'm learning from her. She's a much younger woman than I. Her children are actually much younger than mine. But I consider them safer in the world today. I think my problem has been sometimes I cocoon my children too much. Till when they're released in the real world, they can't cope.